Hey, what's up internet? My name is Nikki and today I'll be doing a book review on It's Kind of Funny Story by Vizzini. The story revolves around a 15-year-old boy named Craig Gilner who suffers from depression. He ends up getting depressed after he gets accepted to the high school he's been working so hard to get into. He starts to feel really isolated and alone and can't actually fit in with his friends anymore, or he just feels like he's a complete and utter failure. So while everything is just building up, he ends up starting to cycle, which Craig defines as just thinking about things and what might come to the conclusion of. For example, if he doesn't study, he doesn't get a good grade. If he doesn't get a good grade, he fails, and if he fails, he can't graduate on time. If he can't graduate on time, he won't be able to get a good job. If he can't get a good job, he won't get a good lifestyle. And so he decides that today is the day that he will end it all. But what ends up happening is Craig goes into another cycle, which basically tells him the consequences of what will happen if he doesn't end up doing the deed that day. So basically he ends up calling an 800 suicide hotline, and they tell him to go to the hospital because technically it is an emergency if you feel like ending your life. So while Craig is there, he decides that maybe it'll be a great idea to check himself into the psychiatric ward. After Craig is committed into the psychiatric ward, he is put into the adult facilities because the teenage area is kind of under renovation, so he has to stay with adults. There, Craig realizes that he does have a problem, but his problems are not that big, and he doesn't actually have to follow what everyone else is doing. Happiness does not revolve around what you do, but what makes you happy. So that's kind of what the story is about. What I thought about the story is it's really realistic. If you ever were curious of what depressed people or someone with mental illness goes through on a day-to-day basis, I suggest you read this book because it's really realistic of how it treats it, and it puts it in perspective of someone who deals with it in a way that anyone could actually relate to it. Some little tidbits that I found out about this book is that Vizzini was actually admitted into a psychiatric ward, and that's how he ended up creating this book. So he said himself that 85% of the story is what he dealt with when he was there, and the other 15% is basically what he made up to create Craig Gilner. So I hope you end up picking up this book if you're really into the whole mental illness thing. For me, I personally had to put it down a few times because it put me into a kind of like an existential crisis, because you start thinking about your life and you start thinking of how small issues that just bothered you while other people have like real problems like this. So if you pick it up, tell me, and I'll catch you later.